Welcome back, everybody. Sports Take. That's Derek. I'm Rob. We are hanging out with you on this gorgeous Wednesday. Not really hot enough for Gunner in our area, but nonetheless, if you are in the tri-state area, the Philadelphia area, you want to take a walk outside today, just soak it in a little bit. It is a gorgeous day. It really
Beautiful
is.
Day. Yep.
All right, so a lot to get to here, Gunner. Let's continue with the Eagles discussion. Like I said, we did the offense yesterday, and we kind of looked at how they compared at quarterback, at running back, receiver, tight end, offensive line to the other teams in the NFC East. Today, we will do defense, okay? Mm-hmm. So let's start with the Eagles' defensive line because it is interesting. They did lose, a big piece for sure with Javon Hargrave, but I think they have some players, some younger guys who are really ready to make a move here. So let's go through the Eagles' defensive line, and then we'll go through the others. You bring back Brandon Graham. I'm going to work off the edges here, and then we'll go towards the middle. But you bring back Brandon Graham, 11 sacks last year. Okay, you go to the other side, and I'm going to count Hassan Reddick and Nolan Smith as defensive linemen for the sake of our discussion here. Hassan Reddick, 16 sacks last year, and you talk about two guys who got after the quarterback in a big way right there with those two. Josh Sweat, also 11 sacks at the defensive end position. You add to that now, maybe Derek Barnett, we'll see, and certainly Nolan Smith as well coming off that edge. Then you work your way interior. Fletcher Cox is back. You add a Jalen Carter. Now you have in a second year Jordan Davis. Some of the depth guys that you have, Milton Williams, Tui Pelotu are some of the guys here on the interior, just to name a few. But give me your overall impressions of the defensive line first.
I'm going to start with the tackles first because I think it's a perfect infusion of veteran presence, evolving maturity, and energetic youth. You have the elder statesman there in Fletcher Cox. You have Milton Williams now, who has really emerged as he continues to progress in his NFL career. He really emerged last year. He didn't put up the gaudy stats, but he was consistent in what he was asked to do. And then you bring in the influx of new energy in Jalen Carter, and you got a holdover who's still basically in his rookie year in Jordan Davis. I love that rotation on the D-tackle position. You can say the same thing about the edges. You bring in the elder statesman, Brandon Graham, who's just happy to play 30-35%, which keeps him fresher and allows him to have an extra burst coming off that edge. Josh Sweat emerged last year as a legitimate pass rusher, double-digit sacks. Derek Barnett, I know you don't want to hear it, but he's there for not you. I'm saying in general. Yeah. Barnett, if he gets his head on straight, and that's a big if he can get his head on straight, he's going to help this defense off the edge. He has the ability to be a very good pass rusher off the edge, at least a pressure guy off the edge. Yeah. I love the rotation that they have across the board. Howie Roseman has done a great job of assembling older vets who are now starting to be in their prime, like the Josh Sweats, and guys who are up-and-comers who are going to have to replace some of these guys probably after this season. Mm-hmm. We say Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, probably after this season, they're both gone.
Yep.
Now you've got an influx of young guys you're still going to have under contract for a few years, so you don't have to scramble looking for free agency and scramble and alter your draft and draft out of necessity. Howie Roseman loves to talk about we want to draft the best player available every draft. Mm-hmm. And the way he's structured now, they can continue that trend. Unless something out of the ordinary happens, you don't have to worry about reconfiguring your draft. We got to draft for need now, which kind of messes up their whole draft board and their mindset of how they like to draft players.
I think you make a good point. There is a really nice mix there. Interior, Carter, Davis, Milton Williams still young. On the outside, you got Nolan Smith. We'll see about Barnett. I don't know. I think he's kind of like middle-aged NFL, but whatever. Mixed in. And Sweat's not old, by the way. So it's a pretty nice mix. Yeah, you're right. It is a pretty nice mix that they have going at that spot. All right, so let's jump around a little bit. And we'll get back to next. We'll tackle the linebackers, but let's look at what the Cowboys are bringing from a defensive line standpoint. And I'll start inside, okay, with Dallas. So what they're bringing to the table, Jonathan Hankins inside. Osa Adezikwu-Zua. Oda Igizua.
Call him OD.
Yeah, OO or OD. The kid out of UCLA. He was their 3rd round pick in the 21 drafts. I apologize. I'm going to just call him Osa for our purposes. Okay. So you have those two in the interior. Off the edge, Micah Parsons, we can call him whatever we want, a linebacker, an edge guy. I don't know. DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, they got some guys there. Okay. There's some guys there, for sure. It's a good defensive line Dallas is bringing to the table.
Yeah, no question. And they have Micah Parsons listed similar to what the Eagles have Hassan Reddick listed as, off that edge. And I love DeMarcus Lawrence. He's getting up there in years, but he's still a viable presence coming off the edge on the opposite side of Micah Parsons. I think Micah Parsons is one of the most lethal players, in the NFL. But you know what? As good as he's been, he was the defensive rookie of the year a couple of years ago. Sometimes he disappears in games. Mm-hmm. He hasn't been as consistent as we thought he would year 2 compared to year 1. And I like their backups. I like Neville Gallimore. And I like Dorrance Armstrong, and you still have Dante Fowler. They're pretty deep along that defensive line, and they predicate on a NASCAR defense. Now, they didn't accumulate nearly as many sacks as the Eagles did, but they had a pretty good margin of quarterback sacks last year. Mm-hmm. They have guys who are not only stout in the tackle spot, but can come after you off the edges, and they got a couple of guys, Neville Gallimore, before he got hurt last year, was starting to ascend and getting talked about a lot. Dante Fowler, a role player, but he fits well into that system. A guy who's got a great burst off the edge and can be disruptive. The collective group, I don't think, is as good as what the Eagles have, but they're a very formidable opponent to be worried about. No question.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say good, but I would lean towards Eagles. But solid for sure. All right, let's go Giants here. And this is a team with a pretty stout defensive line. You got Dexter Lawrence on the nose.
Woo!
We all know that is he is nasty. You got Leonard Williams, nasty. You got Ashawn Robinson, nasty.
Yeah.
I think Kayvon Thibodeau is going to have a really good year. He has been very outspoken about how disappointed he was in the way that he played last year.
Well, he got slowed down too because he got injured early on, and it took him a while to recover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, look, this is Giants throw a good D line out there, man. Like, they're good. They're good.
I like them 4 across, but I'm not so sure about their depth.
Yeah,
the depth has to come up a ways, and they've got some young players, waiting in the wings to spell the frontline players, but the front 4 is really good, And Thibodeau, man, he can get off the ball. He can get after the quarterback, but he's got to be more consistent. To me, he was similar to Parsons. Had great moments, and then all of a sudden, for a game or 2, he would disappear. You wouldn't hear anything from him. And I like the fact that he's evaluated himself as having a very disappointing season for a first-round draft pick. So I'm interested in seeing if he comes out of the gate healthy, how improved he's going to be this year.
Yeah, but that's a strength of their team, and you also have to take into account like who's pulling the trigger here and who's pushing the buttons. And Wink Martindale, is going to get the most out of what he's got too. That's for sure.
Well, see, unlike the Eagles, who like to use basically a 4-man rush, and we'll bring the heat occasionally. Wink Martindale's blitzing from all angles. He's blitzing from the parking lot. He's blitzing from the concession stands. He's bringing extra people every chance he gets. So that helps those guys up front because they've got some big boys up front. Mm-hmm. They're not just frontline, but there's some big muscle up front in that line. Yeah. And, the 2 tackles in particular, they play a 3-4, but, Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams both command extra blockers, which allows other guys to slip through linebacker, safety, corner, whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. But in a Wink Martindale defense, you just never know when you're going to get your number called. Okay, it's your turn. Get to the quarterback.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
Derek, he's the kind of guy that Philadelphia fans would throw a parade for if he ended up here.
Oh, my goodness.
They would lose their minds with a Wink, as aggressive as he is.
Oh, my goodness.
No question. All right, let's go to Washington now. You know, you're going to, I'll work inside. Again, very good here. Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, the two teammates from Alabama, you know, really good. You work your way outside. Chase Young, this is a critical year for him, Derek. They did not pick up that option on him. So he's a free agent at the end of the year. And then it's Montez Sweat. That's a real good four right there.
This front four, to me, this is my favorite front four in the NFC East. Now, obviously, with Chase Young. But Chase Young missed a lot of valuable time, extended time because of knee injury. They really didn't. He came back in the latter part of last year, but he never really got up to speed because he lost so much time. But if he comes out of the gate healthy with these other three, Payne, Allen, and Sweat, man, I tell you what, that's as formidable a group as anybody in the division. They can get after people, you know. But they got to do it this year because you don't know if they're going to pay Chase Young after this year. Yeah. You know, obviously not picking up his fifth-year option is motivation for him to play at a high level. But they paid Allen, they paid Payne. Can they pay all these guys up front that kind of money? That remains to be seen.
You know, and I think we automatically assume when a guy blows a knee out now that he just comes back and he's fine and it's nothing. It took him a long time. I don't know that he's, you know, this will be the year that we'll find out if he's all the way back because he wasn't last year. If you remember, he's not, and it's not automatic. These guys come back as good as science is now. All right. So of all those group, would you lean Washington as your one? Would you take them over the Eagles, over the Giants and the Cowboys?
If just a front four.
That's a tough call, right?
And I have to base it on last year's performance. You have to go Eagles because of the numbers across the board. Yeah. You had your two primary edge rushers, both had double-digit sacks. You know, you had a D tackle who's not here now, but had double-digit sacks. You got a high first-round pick you're replacing him with. You know, Jalen Carter is that unknown commodity. He's going to get more snaps than anybody else. We know what Fletcher Cox is. Fletcher Cox is not the player he was 5-6 years ago, but he does have spurts where he plays extremely well, and he's as strong as any D tackle in the game. He may not be the biggest D tackle body-wise, but he's one of the strongest in the game. Very smart-heady player. But because of those two edge rushers combining for 27 sacks, I have to go them first, Washington second, Giants third, and Dallas a close fourth.
But I will say, I'm sure if we did this exercise for every division, overall, the NFC East might have the best defensive lines.
You know what? You might be right.
Of anybody. All right, this is where I think I don't think the Eagles are winning this one. So let's go linebacker. Your middle's going to be Nakobe Dean. I think the other spot, the Will spot, is very much up in the air right now. It's looking more and more like it's going to be Zach Cunningham. And if it's not Zach Cunningham, I think Christian Ellis is in the mix. I don't know what happens with Morrow, Derek. I don't know that he's 100% here. He may be.
I don't either.
And again, we put Reddick on the line, so we didn't count him, as a linebacker. You know, a lot of questions. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of questions there at this position.
And understandably so. You got an influx of new players coming in at the will and the mic. And those are unknown commodities in this defense. We still don't know what a Sean Desai defense is going to look like. And those are unknown commodities. So, yes, big question marks in terms of will the linebacking play be better than what it was last year? Because let's face it, it was very iffy when it came to pass coverage. Yeah. You know, teams work them in the middle of the field a lot. And so I can't really get a finger on what this linebacking core is or is not going to look like because there's Cunningham, Ellis, or Morrow if he's still here on the outside. We don't know. And we don't know about Dean. We know Dean has the athleticism. We've seen, samples of what he can do a little bit in a preseason game. But now I got to see it against all of one. So I have a huge question mark still about the Eagles linebacking core.
Yeah, same here. All right, let's go to Dallas. The thing we know about Leighton Vander Esch, he's a nice player, but he is hurt a lot. He's their will. Damone Clark, their middle guy, and Jabril Cox is their starting, strong side. So that's what we're looking at from Dallas. It's a good group if they're healthy. It's not bad.
No, not bad. But again, the key there is Vander Esch. 2 years ago, this dude was all over the field making plays. But You don't know because he lost so much time last year to injury.
Yeah.
I love Jabril Cox. Very athletic, good against the run, good in coverage. I love his overall play, but that's only two-thirds. We don't know if Van Der Esch is all the way back because there was talk Dallas was not going to bring him back.
Right.
And all of a sudden they're bringing him back now. So 1 out of 3 I feel good about when it comes to the Cowboys, but the other 2 are question marks as well. Van Der Esch has the pedigree, but because he was hot one year and cold the next, I need to see I don't know which one we're going to get this year.
Exactly. I feel the same way. I think they don't have as many question marks as the Eagles, but there's questions there. That's for sure. All right, let's go to the Giants here and what they're going to be bringing to the table in terms of their linebacking situation. Well, as we mentioned, Thibodeau is considered a defensive lineman in this process. Darian Beavers and Bobby Okereke are essentially their guys that they're going to be bringing out there. And Azeez Ojulari, who was, again, a very good player, who will get after the quarterback too. He was their second-round pick, if you remember, in 21. He's 2 years under his belt.
Yeah.
So that's what they're bringing to the table.
See, Ojulari is going to be interesting. Playing the Sam, he can get after it. But the other 2 guys, I'm not. You didn't hear names much. I'm not sold on them yet. And I understand. In that defense, they're going to blitz. If you're in that Martindale defense, you're going to blitz.
Yep.
Now, what are these guys like? I don't know.
Yeah,
a huge question mark. I don't know what they're like.
They're going to need that defensive line that's so good to hold up, I think.
Yes. If the guys in the middle can command double team blocking, it's going to free up a lot of lanes for the linebackers, the safeties, and the cornerbacks to shoot through.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they're like overall.
Mm-hmm.
So again, like the Eagles linebacking core, very, very suspect to me at this point. 2/3 of the linebacking core.
Speaking of, I don't really love. I got to tell you, Washington either. They have David Mayo. They have Cody Barton, who comes over from Seattle, I believe, who actually I liked it in Seattle. But anyway, he comes over. So David Mayo's their weak side, Cody Barton in the middle, and Jamin Davis is the strong side linebacker, the kid out of Kentucky. He was their first rounder 2 years ago, who I actually like. But, that's a questionable group also. Not a lot of household names there.
For as good as we just deemed all teams' defensive fronts, I have huge question marks about all 4 teams' linebacking core.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. And if you ask me to stack them up, I'm going to say, you know what? They're all question marks to me. I can't put them in chronological order.
Yeah.
Each team has one that you can hone in on. But what about the other 2 or 3? Whether you're playing a 4-3 or 3-4?
Yep.
I don't know. You really don't. So
I agree.
I think all 4 teams are very susceptible at the linebacking position.
All right, let's go corner here. We know what the Eagles are bringing to the table in terms of their starters, and it's Slay and it's Bradbury, and let's throw their, your nickel guy in there with Avonte Maddox. That's a very strong threesome. Even though, last year Slay took a little bit of a step back towards the end of the year. Nonetheless, the 3 of them overall still is pretty darn good as a group.
Yep.
So that's the Eagles. So let's go Dallas. Dallas made the big splash move, Derek, in the offseason to get Stephon Gilmore. So we know that right there, that's a massive upgrade because the guy can still play. So you're bringing Gilmore to the table to go with Trayvon Diggs, who is, he's a home run hitter. We know that. He's going to get a pick. He could very easily get burned. It just depends how it goes with him. But, nonetheless, still pretty strong with that group. They get Deron Bland. Jordan Lewis is banged up a little bit here. Yeah. So that's kind of what we're looking at with Dallas. It's pretty good. I mean, it's still pretty good for sure.
Yeah, you look at Stephon Gilmore. He's 32, but he's still one of the smartest corners in the game. And he can still run pretty well. And he likes hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
And so when I look at those, Trayvon is that riverboat gambler. He's parlayed that into I still can't get over this, a $97 million contract. I still can't get over that one. Because for every big play he gives up, every big play he makes, he gives up 2 big plays.
Yep.
And Dallas is banking on the fact that he's that gambler who can be a game changer because let's face it, he's great. He can cover anybody.
Yeah.
He's great at anticipating, and he's a ball hawk. I'll give him that. But because of that one element, he gives up as many plays as he gets. To me, he's not a complete corner. He's a very good athlete, and he has spurts of playing great, but he's not consistent.
Yeah.
Because he bites so much on pump fakes. That's why a lot of times you'll see him chasing receivers down the field because he bit on the first fake.
Yeah, he's going for the kill every time. Yeah. And sometimes discretion's a better part of valor. Sometimes it's better off not, just to try to make the play rather than the home run every single time. All right, let's hop over to the Giants. Deonte Banks, Adoree Jackson, who they're using him a little bit more in the slot and as the nickel guy. But they still have Darnay Holmes. They have they're a solid group. I don't know that that's a great group. I'll take the Eagles over that group for sure.
Well, yeah, I like Deion Banks better than I like Adoree Jackson, to be honest.
Yeah.
Adoree Jackson, he highly touted, cover corner coming out of college. He hasn't been inconsistent at best. Has never had that consistent, steady season since he's been in the league. Deonte Banks is the one. He's the fighter on the team. I think he's a better cover corner, but again, he's not. I wouldn't consider him in the top 10 in terms of being elite corners. He's a very good corner, but I wouldn't put him in the category of elite.
All right, let's go Giants. You're going to get Emmanuel Forbes, who we saw a little bit on Monday night, first round pick. Kendall Fuller on the other side of them, and then the backups are kind of. They're not widely known names. So that's not bad. Washington's got a decent little group right there.
When I looked at Kendall Fuller coming out of college, he was one of my favorite, players coming out of college. But again, because of his injury history, now he did play all 17 games last year. But he hasn't been that big time star a lot of people thought he was going to be coming out. Yeah. He started with Washington, left, went to KC for 2 years, and all of a sudden he's back with Washington again. So he's still trying to find his way. He's nice size at 5'11", 200, but he's not been a measure of consistency in any stretch of his career. He's got 14 career picks, but everybody thought he would be more of a ball hawk when he came out of college, and that has not been the case. And so now he's like looking at his seventh year in the league.
Yep.
And still trying to prove himself and prove that he can stay healthy. Now he's missed one game in the last 2 seasons, which bodes well for him in terms of durability compared to the previous 3 years. He missed, 2, 5, and 3 games. So he's a proven vet, but to me he has question marks over him in terms of living up to the lofty expectations of what they thought he would be coming out of college. Now the other kid, Forbes. Yeah, I'm curious to see what he was slight of build. He wasn't projected to be one of the top 3 corners taken in the draft.
Yeah, but I remember sitting there. You and I were like, "Whoa, that high? Okay."
But Washington took him because they were one of the worst teams last year in the league in terms of generating turnovers. And this kid was a ball hawk coming out of college. Now he's slight of build, but we got to see him play, and he'll stick his nose in there and tackle. Right. I'll give him that. As small as he is, he'll stick his nose in there and make a play. And he can run like the wind. So he gives them two consistent elements. Number one, he can cover. Number two, if he gets his hands on the ball, he can bring it back and put his team in good position. He has speed too, which is vital to play his corner position nowadays. Can he hold up with his body type? I don't know.
Yeah, he is a smaller guy, that's for sure. So, all right, I would say it's pretty close with the Eagles and Dallas. I'd say that I would say those two are neck and neck, and better than the other two in the division at corner.
Okay, who are you putting at 1? Who you putting at 2?
I might go Cowboys.
Even though you got the gambler on one side,
he could swing it one way or the other. Like if he's getting burned a lot, then I could go back to the Eagles on that. But if he grows up a little bit and doesn't take as many chances this year, and Gilmore's at 32, we need to see what that looks like. Although he's right around the same age as Slay, but yeah, I will go slight lean Cowboys, but there's not much difference for me.
because Stephon Diggs gives up so many big plays, I have to slightly lean towards the Eagles because Slay and Bradbury don't give up a lot of big plays. And even when Slay started to tail off in the latter half of the season, it wasn't as many big plays as Diggs gives up. I think Diggs is more athletic, obviously, because he's a lot younger than both Slay and Bradbury. But in terms of technique, playing sound technique, I have to give it to the Eagles, in that regard, the cornerback spot. And then I go Dallas second. And then I have to go Giants third because Washington, even though I like Forbes, I don't know what he's going to look like yet at this level.
Mm-hmm.
So I put Giants at 3, Washington at 4.
All right, let's go safety. This is another question mark position for the Eagles for sure. Reed Blankenship will be the free safety. What happens at strong safety is very much up in the air, Derek. This could go a bunch of different ways. We're seeing maybe Sidney Brown kind of making a move a little bit here, right. Possibly. We've seen some injuries occur. There's the Kayvon Wallace effect. Will Terrell Edmonds maintain his position? We don't know right now.
Right.
It's hard to judge the Eagles because we just don't know exactly what it's going to look like here at safety. I mean, we have one of the pieces, but we don't know what the other piece is going to be.
Right. And I don't believe Sidney Brown will come out of the gate starting, but I believe before the season is over, he will be inserted as a starter at the safety spot. He's got to wait his turn, and that'll be determined by who's playing in front of him. No matter who it is, I just think if this kid continues to ascend the way he is with his energy, and so on and so forth, that eventually he's going to be they're going to have a hard time keeping him out of the starting lineup.
Yeah,
he won't hit the ground running as a starter.
All right, let's go over to Dallas. J-Ron Curse at the strong side. They gave Malik Hooker some money in the offseason. There's Donovan Wilson, Israel Mukawamu. There's a bunch of other guys that they have in the mix there at those positions, but Dallas isn't bad at safety.
Dallas is my favorite grouping on the back end of a safety. Donovan Wilson is one of the best free safeties in the game. J-Ron Curse is the hitter, and he's solid. And I love Hooker. Hooker has to play back a second fiddle to those two guys. But if they can keep Wilson and Curse healthy, that's one of the better safety tandems in the National Football League. So without question, they're my number one safety tandem in that division.
Let's go Giants. Jason Pinnock and Xavier McKinney as their starters. You can throw a Dane Belton in there and Nick McLeod in there. Bobby McLean as well. Not bad.
Don't know a lot about Pinnock, but I know I'm a big fan of Xavier McKinney when he can stay healthy. Xavier McKinney is another really good free safety. And he's still in his prime. He's only 25 years old.
Yeah, he's young.
And he has a lot of attributes. Now, he only played 9 games last year, missed a lot of good football. In his 3 years in the NFL, he only played 6 games as a rookie, managed to stay healthy all 17 games in 21, and because of injuries, only played 9 games in 22. For some reason, this dude is always getting hurt, and that's not a knock against him. It just happens to some players because of the style of play they have. But when he's on the field, I think he's one of the finest free safeties in the game in terms of reading defenses, coming up and making hits, sure-handed tackler, and doesn't make many mistakes on the back end.
Let's go Washington. It is Derek Forrest and Cameron Curl. Curl's got good size. Curl's a bigger guy, kid out of Arkansas, 6'2", 198. But yeah, feel kind of about that squad.
Yeah, the thing is, Curl early in the season, was getting a lot of notoriety for
some things against the Eagles, I remember.
Yeah, and all of a sudden he started tailing off. Now he missed 5 games due to injuries last year.
Yeah.
But he had 83 total tackles. And he was starting to make some headway there, and then he got injured and he disappeared. And because the other side, I'm like you, what do we really know about him? I would have to put Washington at the bottom of the list in terms of the safety spot.
Yeah. All right. So let's run through the safeties. It certainly isn't the Eagles
Yeah.
with all the questions that they have. Who would you give it to in that grouping?
It would be Dallas, Giants, Eagles, Washington.
All right, so let's do the overhead here, Derek. Let's do the overview of all of it. D-line, linebacker, corner, safety. And let me throw this in there too. If you look at the stats from last year, the team stats, in terms of, some of the key categories and whatnot. I mean, the Eagles, as we talked about before, were one of the better teams in terms of points allowed. So was Washington and so was Dallas. I mean, Dallas gave up 20.1 and the Eagles and Washington both gave up 20.2. That was all good for the top 8 in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So where do you fall overall with all of this?
You got to go Eagles. You have to go Eagles. Even though they lost a lot of players, they did a really good job bringing back some players. Fletcher, Brandon, Bradbury took less money to come back. Even got Slay to rework his deal to stay here. I like the core group that is still here overall, more so than any other core group in the NFL. Like I like Dallas's defensive front, but I really like their trio of safeties. Mm-hmm. I like Washington's front, but I'm not so sure about the back end of their defense, especially with the rookie starting opposite Kendall Fuller. The Giants, I like 3 of their defensive linemen. I like 1 of their corners, and I like 1 of their safeties. But I don't know enough about the depth of their overall nucleus and rotation to be in love with it.
Yeah,
it in some ways is unfair because we watched this Eagles team a lot closer.
Yeah, you're right. We need to see them. Some of these guys, frankly, were just kind of going off stats rather than eyeball.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, Cowboys defensive end Sam Williams in some serious trouble here. So he was arrested for charges of possession of a controlled substance and unlawful carrying of a weapon as well. And it's not the first time that he's gotten himself in trouble. He was accused of reckless driving in 2022, crashed his vehicle in Plano, Texas back then. He faces 2 new charges. One's a weapon charge. Cowboys are aware of the situation, but that ain't good. That ain't good news for the Cowboys. I really feel bad for them.
Yeah, I can see the smirk on your face to tell how bad you really feel for him. But here's a guy who's being counted on heavily, a part of that rotation they have. He had 4 sacks last year.
Yep.
A very, very good guy, coming off there, 6'4", 260 pounds. Has a lot of speed, fits that defensive scheme perfectly. But you're right. Here's another guy now who's going to be addressed by the league off. How dumb can you be? First of all, an unlicensed gun and controlled substance. Are you really? How many stories do you have to see across the league? How many seminars do you have to be sitting in, to learn? Really? And you talk about I'm not saying he did, but players always say, I want to have a breakout year this year, or I'm gonna improve. And you go out and do stuff like this. How many times do you think you can sidestep the law before you finally get caught?
Yeah.
I mean, really? So now he's going to be subject to being suspended.
And he doesn't have to be found guilty in a court of law, too.
No.
That's we always get back to this. Goodell, has that kind of power to do whatever he wants if he feels like it's something unbecoming of the the league or the team.
It falls under the violating the team's conduct policy.
Yep.
Every player knows what it is. They're well versed in it, and yet still, players try to sidestep that so-called policy. Yeah. You're not just an athlete. Players don't get it. They're not just athletes. You are a businessman working for one of the most powerful corporations on the planet.
Yep.
And they have an image they want to maintain. Now, granted, every year they have someone or some bodies who taint that image, but they're adamant about trying to maintain a certain image from their employees.
Well said.
So you're going to be subject to fine and suspension because of your stupidity now.
It's not a right. It's a privilege. All right, let's get a timeout. Let's come back. We'll do a combo effort, a combo platter, if you will, Derek. We'll do a little combo platter. Phillies and 5 teams we are most excited to see this year. 5 teams we are most excited to see. We can't
count the Eagles.
Yeah, we can't count the Eagles or the Packers. We excluded those 2 teams because it's too obvious. All right, so 5 teams.
So there's at least 15 teams that fall into that category. But because we know each other's mindset so well, as I told you in the show meeting, I am guaranteed beyond a shadow of a doubt we will have a minimum 2 of the same teams on our list.
All right.
I would not be shocked if we have 4, but I
man.
say we're going to have minimum of 2 teams, the same teams on our list.
All right, good. I'm looking forward to this. So we'll do that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. That's Derek. I'm Rob. We are Sports Take. Let's talk about Pro Action Restoration. Yeah, Pro Action Restoration. If you have a home, you have a business, and you go through the pain, the inconvenience of water, fire, smoke, mold damage to your property, you know how challenging that can be. I've gone through it. I had it happen, unfortunately, a few years back at my parents' house. It was on a Saturday, which I thought, oh my God, what are we going to do? We can't last till Monday. I reached out to them, and they got right out to my parents' house. They cleaned up the problem. They fixed the issue. The price was right. The crew was incredible. It was a big relief for everybody involved. I could tell you that. Pro Action Restoration is licensed, bonded, and fully insured. They've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. They will work in conjunction with your insurance company, so that's huge as well. Again, it could be water, fire, smoke damage, mold remediation, you name it. They can handle it. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or you can reach out online, proactionrestoration.com. That's proactionrestoration.com.